Today's guest is Jake Puliti, a Nashville singer-songwriter, is both a solo artist and a member of the group Phil Street. Jake is primed to make major waves. Welcome, Jake.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's start back to the beginning. Where are you born and raised? And then how did music first enter your life?
Oh, okay. So the true foundation. I was
Yeah.
born and raised in Edders, Pennsylvania. It's a place that doesn't even exist on the map.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a collective area of multiple cities, and we just call it Edders. But predominantly grew up there for 20 years and then made the move down to Nashville. And I'm going on 2 years, or a year and some change right now, 2 years coming May. And yeah, I mean, I found myself being fully immersed into music come high school career. I did a lot of choir, lots of choir work, and a lot of like musical stuff oriented through school. And it was this one time I was like in a lower level choir, and they had like this solo that you could sign up for and audition for. And my friends are like, "Oh, Jake, you should do it. You should do it, man. You should do it." Because back then at like a Halloween party, I was like sang a little bit of like, I think it was like Over You or something by Neo. I could be completely wrong with the song title, but I remember singing that, and they were like, "Dude, you should sign up for the solo. It'd be great. Whatnot." Like, and it was like a Phantom of the Opera solo. So completely out of the realm. And I signed up for the solo, repped it quite a bit at the house, and like kind of taught myself the mechanics of like opera and just like understanding my voice a little bit more through that and dissecting it all. And I went through the audition, and my choir teacher was like, "All right, Jacob, like, here we go. This is the finale here. Like, can you prove to me that you can do this solo?" And I started singing, and like it was the whole choir. I started singing, and the whole choir was like, "Yo." They were like, "That's insane." My teacher at the time, Mr. Dvorak, shout out to him, love him very much. He was like, "Jacob, I didn't know you could sing like that." And I was like, "Well, here we are." And then that kind of sparked it all. And then music didn't really become a true reality until I was about 18. I picked up the guitar for the first time, picked up even production, so working on Logic and all of this stuff for the first time. Just everything as far as like a modern contemporary artist would need to like succeed, I picked up at 18 years old and just ran with it. And yeah, that's kind of a very quick the beginning and where it like really started. So
That's perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
What kind of music did you listen to when you were growing up? Were your parents musical at all? Or was it just you?
So this is a great question, and it's a very oddball type of answer, because my parents are separated. So whenever I was with my mom, I predominantly listened to Pantera, 50 Cent, Eminem, Nelly, Sublime. I mean, the list goes on. And then even on country, it was, she would play Willie Nelson every now and then, and old Johnny Cash, Charlie Daniels was another heavy hitter. But kind of everything. My mom was a very big collective listener. And then on my dad's side, that's where all my pop punk roots came in. Him being also in a pop punk band back in the day. He listened to Sum 41, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters is another big one. He was also a Sublime guy, but really also loved people like Jason Mraz and John Mayer is what I mainly grew up around the house. Well, both households. So yeah, just kind of all over the place.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you have a good blend, a good all around style. So that's great. So you first picked up a guitar at 18 and got into production. When did you first actually start writing music? Was that right at first, or did you kind of have to like play covers and learn your way first before you started writing?
So it was as soon as I bought this guitar that I immediately went home and started to learn how to play Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan. It was, for anybody out there that is wanting to know a good song to learn how to start playing guitar on, I would not suggest Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan. But I was adamant and I was determined just to learn these licks because it was something my mom always suggested me to learn. And I was like, oh, well, it can't be that hard. Yeah, trying to learn a Legend song. But aside from that and like learning really basic chords very quickly, I was like I want to create immediately. So I wish I could remember what like the first song was, but it was literally 2 strings. I played it on 2 strings and I was like, this is it.
Nice.
This is where it's gonna go. So yeah.
Sounds fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. You get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you first started writing, when did you first release songs?
Oh, another great question. So being that I first started writing at 18, I believe it was the year of 2018 that I kind of started writing a little bit more and more and more and got some songs. There was one song, for that matter, where my mom was like, that's pretty good. Like, I'm singing this out in the living room and, you know, it's catchy. You should get that recorded. So I went to my favorite music shop of all time. This is like the next closest place to heaven on earth. It's called BCR Music. It's kind of that's where I bought my first guitar. That's where I continue to buy all of my equipment. But they're located up in Pennsylvania. And I said to the guy that I created a good friendship with, Jared, I was like, look, man, I really don't want to like come up to you and ask you this, but like, I know you're saying about recording and whatnot, but like, do you know of anybody that has a studio or anything that I can get these songs recorded? And he goes, let me make a call. And he makes a call. We go over to the studio. I meet then Logan Summy, who's a great man. And then Mitch Hood, who was a co-producer and the main producer behind the sounds of Dirty on the Dance Floor and Night Still Young. Those are the first ones that I dropped in 2018. So I guess you could say it was about a year and a half or so of just like writing and then being like, okay, well, I think this stuff's pretty decent to then go into Dirty on the Dance Floor and Night Still Young at the time. Very like fetal form of my songwriting, but it was great experience, great time.
Yeah, when you took those demos in, were they like somewhat produced from your own production, or are they just kind of bare bones with the guitar and all that?
So somewhat produced, yeah. And at that time, I was running through GarageBand, having no clue what in the hell I was doing. And yeah, I mean, I even got the point across enough for them to be like, all right, dude, yeah, let's go for this. And I was like, all right, awesome.
It's awesome.
So no work tapes. I like bringing, especially if it's to an outer person or an outer producer, I love bringing some sort of idea now to the producer and being like, this is kind of the realm, at least as far as it being mapped out and the vibe of the song.
Yeah, that's awesome. So between the time, was that before you went to Nashville, right? That was in Pennsylvania.
That was before. Yep.
Okay, awesome. So what took you from recording these songs to Nashville? What was kind of the journey for that, and what took you to Nashville?
Okay, well, this is a really fun one as well. The whole background behind why I wanted to move to Nashville was a story between my friend and I. We were going to college at this time. So this was right into going into the next step of our livelihoods for schooling. And his mother was like, you guys love music so much, why don't you choose Nashville, Tennessee? And we were 19 or 18 or 19 at that time. And I was like, that would be kind of a cool idea. Because I was not liking college at all. I did community college along with my friend, and I barely even did a full semester. It was like half semester at that, if I'm giving myself some credit. And I was like, yeah, this really isn't for me. I'm going to then get a full-time job and save up for Nashville, Tennessee, and go there with my buddy and all this stuff. Lo and behold, got really irresponsible with spending because I loved guitars, and I bought a couple of guitars on the way through it, and didn't get to Nashville until about a year and a half later. And that was because I landed a spot on American Idol. And being through that, I met so many other people through American Idol on the show that were based in Nashville. It was kind of like the sign of, all right, dude, you got to go. So immediately after the show was done filming, and once I got departed from the show, I was like, okay, ask my buddy who we were talking about going to Nashville. He was already there because he promised himself that he was going to leave on his time. And I was like, dude, do you got a spot? And he was like, yeah, come on down, man. And literally 2 years ago, come May, I moved in and then just kind of took off from there.
Wow. That's really cool. It's cool that you had kind of that connection when you first got in. You weren't just by yourself. So that
exactly.
Sure. So really quick on the American Idol thing, I've always kind of been curious. So I'm sure the story of you being on the show has been told a lot, but how did the show affect, I would say, your music career? Like, did it give you rise in numbers on social media? Did it do any of that? Or is it just the biggest takeaway from it in the connections you made that took you to Nashville?
Oh my goodness, there's so many takeaways that I took from this. American Idol really, really, really helped me grow, solely from an outlook on a musician's perspective. One, humbling yourself, because coming from a small town, I say emphasis on the felt, I felt like I was the big fish in a small pond. And going on to American Idol, where you have hundreds of insanely talented musicians across the country and even the world, they land spots on this show. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, like I'm not the only musician out there, and but being on that show, yes, it did help my social media numbers, which was super awesome, because knowing that other people, it was almost like a reassurance that I was doing the right thing to myself, like shooting for the goal that I really want to go for. So it brought me social media aspects, and like analytics really skyrocketed. And then even then, communication with other artists and communication with fans rather were even more important and more heightened. So I saw a little bit more traction in pretty much every tributary that involved my music.
That's interesting. Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned the humility factor before you moved to Nashville, because that's what I hear about Nashville is like, as soon as you move in, you're now a small fish in a big pond, no matter where you're from, So that's awesome. So what were your first steps when you moved to Nashville? Like, what happened once you finally got in and moved in with your buddy?
All right. So I like using this analogy best for even people that are looking to move to Nashville. What I did as soon as I landed 2 feet here in Nashville was, where can I play out? Immediately. And I found this place through my buddy's girlfriend at the time. And she really took this wave and was like, here's where you can play. Here's my friends. I'm actually doing a writer's round here. And it just took off from there. So my whole analogy of that first year of me being in Nashville was building a foundation. It's construction 101, right? Whenever you come to a new place, you want to build a reputation. So like I said, I'm using this analogy of building a house. The first year was building foundation. In that foundation, my first year being here, I immediately grew connection with as many people as I possibly could, whether it be writing songs, grabbing coffee, talking to people at parties, and going out and really just making connects. I then shrinked it down to the people that I truly enjoyed working with, and still to this day have so much joy working with them, that it's kind of helping everyone in my little group achieve and excel even more, because we're just driving each other.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's awesome. What's something, is there anything you wish you did differently in that first year of Nashville that you kind of picked on later?
Quite honestly, I was actually just talking to this about my buddy, and I was like, the one thing that I wish I did was took a breather. And you hear a lot of even very well established artists say that, and I never understood it until I really got obsessed with the grind. And that first year was being burnt out of writing, doing co-writes so much and all of these things, that I was like, I just don't feel it anymore. It was just to kind of look back and kind of enjoy where I was at, what I was doing, that could have helped me go further. Taking breaks is a good thing, and that's something that I wish I definitely would have done.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I haven't heard that one at least very often. And I think that is important, to kind of just take time and figure yourself out, and kind of, take a good look from a few steps back of where you're at and what you need. So that's great. When did you start recording in Nashville? Like, when did you start actually doing releases again?
Oh, so I started doing releases in Nashville come 2020, and what that all entailed. Sorry, my cat's over here going crazy. what that entailed was I was getting a little bit more comfortable in production for myself, constantly staying in my little cave where my studio setup is. I was always trying to expand on a better sound so I could do it myself. And it got to that point where I was extremely comfortable with doing so, that 2020, so last year, I came around and was like, all right, I'm actually pretty hyped to do this.
Yeah. And then how'd the pandemic go for you?
Oh my goodness. So I know everybody has like their kind of little thoughts. For me, it was a grace from heaven above, especially during that mega shutdown period. Not only did I upgrade on everything that I had from job savings and, you know, stimulus really did help. I took advantage of expanding my musical platform and my ears. So there was this thing, there was this academy where you could learn and kind of dive in on what EQ is and what compression is and all this stuff for a very low cost. And I was like, dude, I'm doing this. And did that. I kid you not, that took my production level from here to here instantaneously. Within that first month, I was already extremely comfortable with music I was making. And I was like, now I just want to dive in deeper and really understand the mechanics of sound waves.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've become more self-reliant ever since then?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And this actually leads to a great segue for new releases. I'm getting ready to release an album of 8 songs that is not entirely self-produced. There's 2 songs that I did not produce, but co-produced with. And yeah, it's just like, it's a constant flow now that I have this desk where if I feel something, I'm going to create it instantaneously or whenever I feel it. And then I can be like, well, almost determined for myself. If I don't like it, if I want to change something about it or something, instead of going out of my way and telling a producer, hey man, this is kind of what I'm hearing. And it's kind of like talking to a brick wall with certain producers that you talk to. And, you know, it kind of saves that headache, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only, I'm sure, is the idea factor of having to like communicate an idea, but also saves you a ton of money as well to be able to just not spend their studio time and all that.
Exactly. And that actually really helps as well, because all of that money that I'm saving from producers, I can put towards mixing engineers, even better mixing engineers, like ones that I found already, mastering, because I like having separate ears on every part of the process of making the cake.
Yeah.
And then even there, you can branch out to promotion, possible merch, and all of that stuff. So just saving money predominantly from the bulk of that production is exactly right.
That's awesome. So, like you said, I'm sure it affects all different areas. I mean, I think it's good to be self-reliant wherever you can be, but also there's a point where it's like, you need to learn your specialties so you don't just try and stretch yourself too thin on so many different areas. So I think it's awesome to get direction down. Oh yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say I have it down or anybody has it down for that matter. Yeah. I feel like it's so experimental, but I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. So what can you tell us about the album? You said it has 8 songs. Are they old songs, the new songs? What's the process been for that?
Okay. So these songs have kind of been curated from being written last year from October to December is really when I put my head down. I was kind of even more comfortable with production and my value of doing so, that I was like, all right, these songs aren't going to work for it. These songs aren't going to work for it. These songs aren't going to work for it. So I'm going to put my head down and rewrite, for that matter, and just wrote and produced a boatload of songs. And from that, I came up with this idea because of what was in the portfolio for the songs that I did enjoy. They were all completely different genre sounds in a way, with my voice on it over top of it. But I came up with this idea called Gray Area. All of these songs that you hear in this collective whole is a gray area. You know, there's no black and white, or there's no specific place to put these songs, but in the gray. So I was like, I think I really enjoy this concept and I want to make an album called Gray Area. So it starts off with Fuego, which is actually my latest release, the single off of the album, where it's very more hip hop oriented, and it breaks down slowly through all of the 8 tracks as far as production level. So it starts off really hip hop, still hip hop, then it goes into a little bit more punk rock, paying homage to my roots. And then it goes to like really folky nylon guitar, all the way to just me and a guitar. And then lastly, me literally just throwing a voice memo on my iPhone and sending it across the room and playing the song. So it just breaks down from extremely processed to raw.
That's amazing. I love that concept. That's so cool. Oh, man, that's so creative. When can we expect it to drop?
So I'm actually kind of debating as of right now, considering the numbers for Fuego is doing really good and actually way above and beyond what I was expecting, that I might do another single and then release the whole project. So that would be, what would that be? 6 new songs that everybody's ears would hear all at once. But hopefully looking like end of May, June is where Gray Area, if the second single comes out. If not, then I'll probably just drop the whole project here come May. I keep on forgetting that it's April now too. So the timeline's a little bit shorter, it seems. But yeah, I mean, I would comfortably say end of May because I'm really, really looking forward to breaking the second single off and seeing where it leads.
That'd be awesome. What are your hopes for the album when it drops?
I'm sorry?
What are your hopes for the album when it drops? Like, what do you hope it accomplishes?
My hopes for the album in its entirety is to gain some form of fan base and understand who my audience is and who I should be speaking to whenever I write these songs or connecting with. You know, writing songs is a little bit more personal, and it's somehow, some way people universally connect with it. Because they're like, dude, that song just helped me get through a breakup or something. Those are the best responses ever.
Yeah.
But the main goal is to expand and broaden the audience. And then more or less, this is actually a great way of thinking about it, is laying that foundation once again and going out and reaching as many people as possible, and then solidifying that group that I really want to attract as far as listening to my music. Right now, it's very generic, I wouldn't say. Like, it's the kind of the best plain word to describe it, because there's no audience that I have that I know will listen to my music always, because it being so many different genres, and just because I can right now, it's kind of reaching out to as much as possible and then bringing it back in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you've got, you know, a good idea of what you want and kind of the sound you're going for, and I think it's awesome. And, you know, I think it's going to do really well, so I'm excited for you.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think, but yet again, I think you always hear that saying: if you want to hear a laugh, you always tell God your plans.
Yeah,
you know. So it's kind of more or less relaxed in a way as to what I want to do with things, and it's a hurry up and wait type deal right now. So just kind of playing things by ear, and when it's comfortable and when it's best to do so.
Yeah, and that's great. Like I said, just laying the foundation, letting it happen. So that's awesome, man. So tell us. So I heard you're in a band called Phil Street. Tell us about Phil Street and kind of what that project is to you and what you hope for that and all that.
Dude, Phil Street started on such a wild day. I went in with one of the other members, Graham Barham, on just like a regular write, because I do a lot of writes with him solo for his stuff as well and produce for him. And we went in writing this song about this girl that he was like all about that day. And we wrote this song, and he sat down and we were like, it just did not work. The primary day, like the morning of that, did not work at all. So we were like, all right, let's go get lunch, come back, sit on it, and reapproach this. So what we did is, he has a piano in his kitchen, believe it or not. It's kind of funny. And I sat down on the piano and started playing this chord progression, and he was like, I like that. And then we just started spitballing, because we're two guys that just start spitballing melodies like crazy. And he said something, and he goes, man, I don't know, I've just been thinking about my best friend naked lately. And I turned around and looked at him. I said, that's the song. And he's like, okay. And then we took it to this direction where we kind of formatted a chorus, and then went up to his studio where his roommate's also a producer. And we were like, Mo, we got to produce this track right now. Slap the beat together. all of this stuff. And we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, we need to get Danny on this. And Danny was a friend of ours from writers retreats in the past and just hanging out. And Graham called Danny. This was about 10 o'clock, 10, 11 at night. So all of that production time of building that track, Graham calls Danny. He's like, dude, we need you on this song. And he's like laying in bed and all this stuff. And he was like, well, let me hear it first. We play it. And he goes, I'm over in 10, and comes over and then brings his lady, who's also a writer. And this just kind of this night of super magic happened where there was this group that kind of solidified on writing the chorus. Graham and Danny then separated and write their verse. It's still how we work to this day. And then I even wrote my verse, and then other friends of ours hopped onto that track because we just thought it was fun. Phil Street then happened literally that night. We came up with the name because we were like, this is a 24-hour turnaround. We just want to release this song for fun. Why not? And the whole band name is actually where the house resides, is on Phil Street. And I was like, well, why not call it the band that? You know, everybody was like, cool. Like, then we started branching ideas around it, and we all collectively came together to say Phil Street was the band's name. From there, we then took it from this new year, so 2021, all had a sit down talk of just Graham, Danny, and I. We were like, look, the energy level for Naked lately was insane. We really want to like almost coming up to me and talking to me. They're like, we want to know if you're serious about this because we are. And I was like, absolutely. I said, on one condition, you guys have to know that we're about to have 2 girlfriends right now. You know, because like, if you think about it, a bandmate, you have to care and tend for their emotional and like out of everything. And they were like, absolutely. So we just started going to town, and even production work on that, we've been going crazy. I think we got 5 to 7 song ideas through that first month of just going nuts.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
That's exciting, man. How does Phil Street differ from your solo projects? Like, how does it sound different? What's the difference there?
I would say the biggest difference of Phil Street compared to Jake Puliti in its entirety is energy. There is some sort of energy whenever I go alongside Danny G and Graham Barham, and we just have fun. No matter what the song topic is, if it's dark or if it's like emotional, if it's uplifting, there's always this like, we're doing it because we love music, as why that the whole Phil Street thing started, and then took into more seriousness because we were like, people are really enjoying this song, so why not make more like this? So I think, to get back to your answer, energy is really what separates it.
That's awesome. Are you going to play live? Like, what's your plans for live coming up as both a solo artist and with Phil Street? Are you guys going to play as a group? Are you going to do your own shows? What's
So this is actually a really great and relevant question, because my group chat is lighting up right now with the boys. We have a little like 20-minute set opening up for our other great buddy, Chris Rudiger. And he was like, dude, I'll give you guys 20-minute slot for Phil Street to play. And it's not like a writer's round or anything. It's like on stage. And we were like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? And so Phil Street and Jake Puliti, as far as like live playing and seeing what happens with that, that's going to be more or less playing by ear just to see what all happens. Both are primary focuses for me because I believe in both. Yeah. But Phil Street, I'm heavily looking forward to shows, especially this one coming up on April 8th. We're gonna have a good time bouncing around. So
that's exciting. Yeah, it sounds like you guys would be a great show. You know, all the energy and all that, perfect for live.
Oh, exactly. That's what we want to translate onto the stage from our music. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. So what advice would you give to new artists who are just getting started, who are just picking up a guitar for the first time and want to start writing songs and all that?
Okay. So I'm going to tell you what an old man told me at a grocery store the one day. I was wearing a Frank Sinatra shirt. I tell all of my friends this because I think it matters no matter where you are in life, musician or not. But for this, being a musician, I'll apply it to this. This old man stopped me and he said, do you even know any Frank Sinatra songs? And I said, absolutely. He started naming off because I love Sinatra. And then through this old witted conversation where it was just a joy to like just talk to this man in the middle of the grocery store, I said, let me ask you this question, sir. I said, for a young man that's growing up in this life, what is the best thing to do? And he said something profane, so I won't necessarily repeat it entirely, but he said, just listen. And I sat back, and as a 22-year-old dude that loves to kind of tell people what he does and kind of exploit himself to the world about music and all of this stuff, even being on live television saying, hey, look at me, hearing just listen was another like humbling point where it was like, okay, what does he mean by that? So I really like went back to the car and started thinking about that. Even listening to music, whether it be your references, people that you're completely inspired by, or just motivational things that you hear your favorite artists do, listen to them. Really, really take it in as like a sponge is the best form of analogy for that. Be a sponge. And all of that information, you can then kind of take your own direction with a grain of salt and apply it to your own music. And to branch on top of all of that, just listening for somebody that's getting into it and all of that stuff, be sure to just hone in on the craft. You have to be obsessed. That's something that's happened for me lately, as being obsessed with what I need to do.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic advice. And that's a cool story. It's interesting how you actually like approach that man with a question. I mean, most people, I don't think they'd go as far to ask somebody like that. So I guess the great questions get great answers. So that's awesome.
That's true.